it's a project intending to ensure that within the larger context of Newark history, we don't forget that Newark also is home to queer Newarkers. And the idea is to ensure that there is a space, an accessible space, where those narratives can be collected, and also material culture. It is, I think, at first, a response to Newark queer community members' desires to have their stories told, to refuse, the larger communities, our larger societies, need to render them invisible, their stories, their bodies, to have their voices, their artwork, their lives captured. A lot of queer Newarkers saw the need to have their lives made visible, and because of that, be seen as a value. So this is a response to that. There's a larger sort of archival project that is also being developed to continue this work, to create space or spaces where a lot of what's now being collected, papers, interviews, material culture, can actually be stored and accessed by those who are in the community, to ensure that those whose names won't end up in newspapers, even though they probably should, or who won't be heralded as movement builders and institutional builders, have spaces where their lives can actually be chronicled and appreciated. First thing we did is to say, hey, we need to make this a community-centered initiative. We invited community members to name what this, to vision what this should be, and to not only vision, but to be accountable to that vision by being partners in the process. And out of that conversation came, the ideas of ensuring that we do a conference yearly, so that different groups can have access to a space where they can share their stories in a public setting. The accessibility of archives, thematic sort of conferences or talks or presentations on materials, highlighting artists on the website who are queer artists who might not otherwise have an avenue to express their artistic selves. So on the website, artists can actually have artwork or other types of art expressive materials placed on the website for others to see, not just in Newark but across the world. And also we're developing a bibliography that's specific to Newark queer subjectivities, so you can see access, or at least have access to a bibliography that can lead you to get information from newspapers, from scholarly journals, and from popular culture. And this is still growing, and I think what I would say is that it's the community who decides what this will be and how it will live, because they are going to be the arbiters of it. So right now, Rutgers University, through the work of Beryl Satter, who's the professor there, is really providing a lot of the resources, spaces to hold meetings. We even have a one room where we can actually begin storing things and actually place interns if need be. But we're also thinking about the multi-dimensionality of this. We don't want it, typically community members who have no association with universities can typically shy away from them. So we do need to think about multiple methods to have our material stored. So we have some community members now who are thinking about online, internet-based web portals where community members can actually store material. But then we'll actually have a physical site. As of now, it's at Rutgers Newark, where we can actually store material. The goal, because that project, the larger project, is still being developed, the goal is to sort of have different domains, different mediums through which people can actually archive the material, so that scholars who are doing work on queer subjects, historians who might want to gain access to the papers of an individual who might be there, or other types of materials, and community members who might otherwise just want to see the works of others in their community, who may not have institutional affiliation, will need to be able to have access to those things as well. So we're thinking about a way that can be done that's fair at all levels. So people are still learning about this project. I think it can do the work of inspiring new forms of collaboration between universities and communities that the universities exist in. I think it helps to have folk who have feet in both worlds. So I was a university employee who's also a community activist and community resident. And you have professors who take the idea of community engagement seriously, who believe that the classroom can be expanded, and that knowledge production does not have to happen within the walls of the school proper. And that in fact, the knowledges that are actually produced within the academy are greatly influenced by what's happening outside of the walls of the school. And I think that once this can be a model to look at that really may help other institutions who may deem themselves even community-based institutions, how engagement can really happen, by actually putting resources and bringing them to the table, having community members decide how those resources can be spent, instead of the other way around, where we sort of dictate to communities how projects should go, where dollars should be spent, which becomes a sort of an imperialist social justice type of way of doing work, which really isn't justice at all.